Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. Today it's actually quite a big one. So, outside of indies, the game market can feel pretty stagnant. You know, Western AAAs, like all businesses, are trying to increase profit margins, and to do this, they often squeeze the developers harder and harder, and it does feel like that's the sort of thing that just drives down quality and compromises many of the games that come out. And I think that's something that we all really do feel to quite a degree, and of course, all the while, we see microtransactions and all that stuff slipping in. And really, in the last 15 years, we've just seen the AAA market abuse the talent, churn through people. We've had emails on this channel from ex-AAA devs who have actually moved to mobile development literally for an easier, better quality of life. And like Bungie heard right before they signed their deal with Activision, the industry has taken the goose that lays the golden egg and mashed it into foie gras. In the next few years, though, AAA may actually start to feel the impact of their inefficiency and their mismanagement, but perhaps not from a source that we would have expected, from Chinese developers who might actually be threatening to do a better job for cheaper, and not from Tencent or NetEase, the big boys, no, from passionate developers who seem to have escaped free-to-play hell and actually want to make the premium games that we all want to play. Oh, and a quick thing, it's August, it's almost the end of August, and this month's Patreon rewards are pretty on theme for today's video. It is Monk Month, so you'll get the Monk Fantasy Class pin, as well as the Dragon bookmark, the sticker, the art prints, and certainly if you're into Black Myth Wukong, I think you'll like those quite a bit, all delivered, of course, straight to your door. Plus, of course, the daily briefing and weekly features on Patreon and early content. So, that's what's up there, patrons. Thank you for all of your support, and with that said, let's begin. You've probably seen it already. Black Myth Wukong, the game that took the world by storm with a 13-minute long gameplay trailer that has got 10 million views on Bilibili, which is kind of like Chinese YouTube, and upwards of 4 million on YouTube. Now, it's a AAA adventure game with 3 specific and obvious influences: God of War, Sekiro, and Monster Hunter. And it really does seem to combine these with what appears to be a darker take on the journey to the West myth. So why are people excited about it? Well, I think it's pretty simple. It looks like one hell of a game. At a glance, it comes across very much like Sekiro, but prettier and brighter. It's got all the standard trimmings of good action game, of course, telegraphed but varied enemy attacks, a dodge roll with iframes, and a whole bunch of attacks and different tools to approach combat with. And it does look and play kind of as fast as Sekiro, but of course without the posture mechanic, focusing more on dodging, which I think will go down well with a lot of people. Now, as for the variety in combat, well, the Monkey King has a wide array of magical tools in the Legends, and plenty of those are making appearances in the game. You've got the magical parry, fixing enemies in place, then his magic clones and the various transformations, including the one where, well, he just sort of, it's a larger form for like crushing waves of mooks and a flying cicada to navigate stealthily. It's pretty cool. And the level of detail really did grab people as well. It's excellent. I mean, when he transforms into a boss that he defeated earlier, he gets a fire attack. When he uses that on the new boss, it sets the boss's fur on fire. But then when the new boss finds a second or two to spare, it shakes out the fire on its fur. That is an attention to detail that is just really nice. It's the sort of thing that puts a smile on people's faces. And then, of course, for the gameplay side of things, there appears to be what can only be described as hitbox porn. He hops on his staff to dodge an enemy's low blow and then retaliates with a nice little bonk to the head. And I think that's just the kind of stuff that action game dreams are made of, which people will love. And then visually, I mean, it looks fantastic, right? We immediately see a detailed world, great texture work, shadows and lighting that are as next-gen as you could expect from a game coming out in the next few years. I mean, if this trailer had appeared at the Xbox or PlayStation showcase, it would have instantly just been a massive PR win for whoever had it. Basically, right, this game appears to be a winner in so many categories, all based on the gameplay trailer. And apparently, that's a fully playable trailer. No BS. So, you know, not something that barely runs at a good frame rate and is stitched up in post or anything like that. No, that's literally, supposedly, actually playable in the game right now. It even showed glimpses then of the Monkey King's, the entire journey, right? And that's one of the most well-known stories in the world. It is absolutely humongous, of course, in that region specifically. And I think that means that this game has got absolutely everything it needs to take the world by storm. But of course here, there is more than just a game. This video has many minutes left, And that's because we need to go into the story behind this game. So if this game is a hidden gem, where was that gem hidden? Well, turns out it's made by Game Science. They're a Chinese group of just over 40 staff. Now, some of these staff are ex-Tencent Games, which is maybe where we can see a glimpse of what's to come. Daniel Ahmad shared their story on Twitter. Basically, some of them were working on a Journey to the West themed MMO for Tencent that didn't go anywhere. And wanting to work on premium AAA games, they spun off into their own game studio and they made a number of successful mobile games in order to build up experience and cash. And then, in 2017, these devs saw a massive uptick in Chinese Steam usage. So, to capitalize on this, they decided that now was the time to open a new studio to start work on Black Myth: Wukong. Now, apparently, they released this trailer in the hopes of recruiting the 20 or so extra staff that they need to finish the game. Suffice to say, I think they'll be able to do that rather handily because, well, turns out they actually did not expect to blow everyone's minds with the quality of the gameplay trailer. The founder of the company has actually since commented on the massive excitement. He thanked everybody. He said they're happy with the response, but they know they've got a long way to go and they plan to retreat back into the shadows to continue working. And they're very modest people, at least performatively so, because he basically apologized for the trailer, listing a whole bunch of problems that it had, like say, water physics not being right, a dip in frame rate when the Monkey King was fighting a 1,000-man army, and a whole bunch of other things. But that's a bit of the story, though. What the point here is this a sign of things to come? And to be honest with you, I think it is. You've heard the story so far, and now is the time in the video where we're going to make some bold statements and predict the future. This studio decided in 2017 that it was the time to go premium, seeing the massive growth of premium games, especially on Steam in China. And most of the work in this game was done by a team of 13, and they only just started scaling up a year ago. Now that seems absolutely insane, given the quality of what is there, but that's what happens when you've got experienced staff, and those staff are empowered by modern tools like Unreal Engine, and they don't have a bunch of overhead. Now, on top of being small, it also won't cost them as much to grow. We always talk, right, about the living costs of, Irvine, California, places where EA or Activision Blizzard have got studios set up, but Hangzhou, which is where Black Myth: Wukong is being made, is a lot cheaper. It's apparently similar in cost of living to cities in Poland. And it's no coincidence that CD Projekt Red are basically ruling the gaming roost from there in Poland, where it's a lot more economical. Now, it is true that the taxation situation is not as ideal in China as it is in Poland, but all the same, yes, it would cost a fraction of the price to develop this game in China than it would to develop in, say, Canada or California, to give two examples. And I think that's where we could see a lot of challenging happen. I think the Black Myth: Wukong might be just the thin end of the Chinese premium wedge. This game is set up for success in so many ways, right? It has already seen a wealth of positive stories. It's got no release date, so it's got plenty of time to just go and be good. It's a darker take on Journey to the West, which I think guarantees some sales in its own right. And importantly, it does not try to reinvent the wheel. It is borrowing from 3 extremely successful modern action games. Imitation is the highest form of flattery, many would say, and I don't think that another great action game is anything to complain about, so I think this will do very well. Now, if this is the thin end of a wedge, well, what about the rest of the wedge? What's going on? Okay, let's think about the facts. This game was started by 13 people. Again, that's bloody insane, but it was. Some of those people were experienced devs from one of Tencent's studios. They were tired of their output, and they pounced on an opportunity to go premium. Now, Tencent has got 4 whole studios full of developers who could very well be following the same path. One similar to, say, Cygames in Japan or MiHoYo in Taiwan, who both, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce MiHoYo, who the hell knows, but those are both examples of companies that have used profits made in the mobile game realm to start developing big budget games for console and PC. Now, the market in China is known for mobile, and it's known for free-to-play, but to be fair to the average Chinese gamer, they haven't had that much of an alternative, have they? So you can't really blame them. There may be a huge market that just hasn't been served before. One that, is driven by devs who love games for the same reason that we do. We've already seen Steam performing extremely well in China unofficially, so the official release might just start an outright gold rush. Fear is something that is natural, and there could be a little bit of that because, yes, that market very well could dwarf ours as time goes on. China's a massive country, especially in population, and in that case then, yes, sometimes we may be less catered to in some of the games that come out. I mean, look at, say, Hollywood movies that quite obviously end up making decisions that are clearly meant to play in the Chinese market, so some little things like that could happen. And also, as far as media goes, China is a much younger market, right? And it's not really had as much time to develop. And if you see, I mean, well, just look, seeing some of our platforms flooded by the kinds of, some of the sorts of things that tend to do super well in that box office might take some getting used to, right? So there could be a little bit of a culture clash there, much in the same way that, you know, if our games come out over there, there could also still be a bit of a culture clash. Indeed, sometimes our games come out in Japan, and there's a culture clash there too. So all those things could happen, but I would say there's a saving grace here, and it is that we appear to be starting this whole thing off with a really good-looking action game, and I think that's something that can make everybody happy. Now, there is always the other fear. The Chinese AAA will undergo the same transformation that the West has. Very well could, but right now we're just going to have to wait and see. Of course, thus far in this video, we're really talking about the plucky up-and-comers, right? These indies who are able to punch above their weight. Well, it's not just the indies, because we've already seen big Chinese companies move into Western markets. Tencent and NetEase obviously have massive amounts of investment in Western companies, but they've also set up their own studios in the West to focus on premium. And then, of course, there's Sony, right? They started their China Hero project last year, and that basically is an initiative to fund Chinese developers and essentially kickstart PlayStation as a big brand over in China. Now, obviously, we then can't ignore Tencent's own foray into AAA development with codename Sin, which does look really derivative, doesn't it? It's totally riding that cyberpunk hype wave. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll be bad, though, but certainly I would put more trust in ex-Tencent devs than current ones. Wukong is basically an indie game, but the trailer does suggest that you've got experienced developers and modern technology, which mean that a small team like that can make a game that visually, to us, registers as being a big AAA heavy hitter, which is pretty damn impressive. So, we're going to have to wait and see how all of this evolves. But I think the point here is just look at what Game Science were able to pull off with the team that they had and modern technology. And that's where I have to leave it to you. What do you think about the trailer, right? Does this prospect of this kind of interesting hybrid sort of AAA feeling games from China, is that exciting to you, right? Is this game, Black Myth Wukong, something that's exciting to you? It certainly is exciting to me. So, do let me know what you think. I'd say this is certainly an interesting time. Tell you what, though, you know, the region gets a pretty bad rap for games, right? All the microtransactions and all that stuff. It's actually just really nice to see a bunch of Chinese devs be able to band together. And there's the whole, like, Chinese indie scene, like, even in PC, like, with a lot of rhythm games and stuff that a lot of people don't know about. But at least for a game like that, it's actually just a nice story to see something different from the norm, right? We talk about Tencent and NetEase so much. Well, here we just have a bunch of ex-staffers who've decided they just want to make seemingly their dream game, and now they're going and doing it. That's a great story. You know, it's one that we celebrate when it happens in the West, and we absolutely should celebrate it as well when it happens over there too. So, pretty cool stuff. I'm excited to see what happens next. Yeah, good on them. Hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, if you would like our monk-themed rewards, which I think have got a little bit of a crossover with some of the aesthetics of China, of course. If you think about the inspirations of where this month's Patreon loot came from, then yeah, you can check out the Patreon. Of course, you'll get some cool stuff, and it helps us out in the process too. Thanks for all your support, and with that said, I'll see you next time.